Okay, this is step number 9 on end 10 on the apron project. We have just sewn a 5/8 inch seam allowance all the way around our apron, pivoting at each of the corners. Take a moment, pull all the pins out. It really is in your best interest to make sure you get all of those out. Otherwise, every time you put on that apron, you are going to get stabbed. Now what we want to do is just kind of use your fingers and kind of walk your way around the apron. Make sure that your strap is coming right below where you pivoted at. It's right below where I pivoted at, right in from where I pivoted at. We don't want to fill the straps anywhere else in the seams. Then, just like with the straps, we're going to cut off and reduce some of the bulk on each of these corners. Make sure you do not cut over the seam or you're going to end up with a hole in your apron. So we are just trimming off to reduce the bulk, just the big corners. We are going to be turning this right side out here in just a moment. When we turn this right side out, this curve is going to be going the opposite direction. So sometimes the fabric has a tendency to pull on itself. So we are just going to make little clips in the fabric, just in the seam allowance part, being careful not to cut over the seam. Okay, that's going to help allow that to and give it the flexibility to curve the opposite direction. This is called clipping. You could also do something called notching, which is where you take out a pie shape. It just helps reduce some of the bulk that's on the inside by notching rather than clipping. For the sake of this project, clipping is going to be just fine. You'll notice they're about 2 inches apart. Just be really careful that you're not cutting over the seam. Next, I double check, make sure I got all those pins out because again, ow. And we are going to reach on the inside and pull our apron pretty side out. Use your fingers and walk yourself around the apron. You know what shape it should be. You should have nice sharp corners. You can use the tip of your fingers, you could use the tip of your shears on the inside of the bag. As we're working up the side of the bag here, oh look, here's my strap. It's coming out exactly where it should. I'm going to work my way up the first curve to my next strap. There's the top of my apron. You're just using your fingers to walk along the entire apron to get that seam all the way out on the sides. And here's my second strap. I've got a nice sharp corner there working down the side and a nice sharp corner there. Your apron now looks a lot more like an apron. You've got straps that are coming out the side. They should be right there at the top. You've got neck straps that are coming out right at the corners. If your straps have somehow gotten sewn into the seam and they're coming out like this, now's the time to fix that. It's a simple fix. You reach inside, you pull it out, you unpick just that small little spot, you push the strap out from where it's not supposed to be and re-sew it. Then you can turn it out. If it looks like this and your straps are coming out at the right places, you know that you're ready to continue on to the pressing step. So we've got it turned, everything is looking great. We're going to make our way over to the ironing board. This step, particularly if you have contrasting fabric like I do, different fabric on both sides, is going to be incredibly important. We want to make sure that we get this seam exactly on the edge so that we don't see any overlap on this side. You're going to wiggle this back and forth until you get that seam exactly on the side. This is going to be incredibly important for making your apron look nice and crisp. You're going to work your way around the apron, pushing that seam exactly to the edge. This part takes a moment. Remember that there are irons and ironing boards in various places throughout the room so that you're not stuck waiting in line right here. We want to make sure that that seam is getting exactly out on the edge so that we're not seeing any black on our printed side and any print on our black side. I've found that if I just kind of get my fingers a little bit wet so that my fingers are grippy, I can get that fabric exactly on that edge and work my way, pulling it a little bit over there, not getting that seam exactly out on the edge. I should have nice sharp corners In my bottom corners, it shouldn't be rounded. Your pattern wasn't rounded. You're working with nice sharp corners. And we're going to continue pressing along the bottom edge and the side. Now this is the bottom edge. This is where my opening is. I'm going to kind of ignore that for just a minute, and I'm going to continue pressing on the other side to get this seam exactly down where it should be, and we're going to work our way to the center of that bottom pressed seam. So we've got all of our edges. Now this bottom opening, I want to leave my fabric, those raw edges, tucked up inside, and I just want to press this as if it was sewn so that we don't see easily by looking at it where that opening was at. Okay, we've pressed all the way around our apron. We have nice crisp edges. If you would like, now would be a good time to maybe get rid of that center press folded seam. You can do that by steam pressing, putting a little bit of moisture on it, and just spritzing some water and then pressing up the seam. You might need to do this on both sides. Steam pressing is a lot more effective than just pressing itself. So sometimes you can still see that press mark. Just by putting a little bit of water on there and steam pressing, you can get that solid crease from that fold in. We are now ready for the last step of our project.